your center's presentation. You can't. Went to a music festival.
Oh, that's right. Good morning. Wait, come on. Good morning. Is it working? Good morning. Hello? Good morning. Okay. Good morning. We will call to order our MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Board meeting for June 5th, 2025. Item 2, items for individual consideration. Approval, item 2A, approve minutes of May 1st, 2025, Citizens Advisory Board meeting. They were included in your packet. Are there any corrections or changes? Okay, if not, I take a motion in a second to approve. Please cast your votes. Oh, wait just a sec. We're good. Oh.
That's why I was just saying.
Oh, Monique, did you hear that? Monique votes yes. And Daisy. A little hybrid voting today. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2B, receive the MAPS 4 monthly financial report ending April 30, 2025.
So we have a little different format today, and I'll go through it, but we'll start on the revenue side. For the month, $10,941,239. For the fiscal year, $119,723,068. For a total of $666,590,452. Now, actually, I read the wrong numbers. That's just the sales tax. Doesn't include the interest, so the cumulative total is $678,829,192. But below that, you'll see there's some new lines, and what this is for is because there is so many projects now that have outside funding sources. Multipurpose stadium, the Coliseum, Palomar, we had money come back from the investment fund, just various funds, and it adds up to about $100 million. So if we just add that into here, it skews the number that everybody's used to seeing, the $1,078,000,000 on the total. So we've created a new line in there that shows the non-MAPS 4 revenue. You'll notice that of the $103,650,562, and then we total that up. So you'll start seeing that in there. It's nothing new as far as what the money that we have in there. It's just a way of accounting for it now. And I think each of you saw in your subcommittees that we've added that column in there of non-MAPS funds so that we can track that in there also, because it's very important to the project, and it's part of tracking the money on that. So I want to still bring your attention to 3.3% above projected collections. So that represents right now $20 million. So then on the expenditure side for the month, $10,825,643, fiscal year of $77,534,851, and a total of $292,598,068. And I will try to answer any questions you might have.
Any questions for Mr. Todd? Bob?
David, just one point of clarification. The, under that new column, collections above or below target, the 20 million figure, is that just for MAPS 4 revenue and not the outside revenue?
Yes, sir, it is.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second to receive. Who else? Daisy said yes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2C, recommend approval of change order number 17 for the MAPS 4 Fairgrounds Coliseum for an increase of $296,822.
So this is probably not the last change order for this project, but it's certainly one of the last ones. As we wrap this up, there's a lot of little things that come up to finish out the project. And I want to point out that 2/3 of this change order is for the asbestos abatement in the existing Norick Arena. And as we start that interior demolition, things are discovered, specifically that asbestos that was behind the panels in there. And in order to reach that, because of the height there, we have to do some scaffolding, and that was not anticipated. So as I said, 2/3 of that is for that scaffolding. If you have any specific questions, I can go through these, but like I said, it's really things just to wrap up the project: access panel, communication connections, data connections. As we do inspections, additional lighting at elevator control panels, you know, some of the inspectors require some things as we close it out, but they're all pretty minimal costs.
Yeah. Any questions?
I have a question, mostly clarity. So I think, where are we? We're at 0.7 over the original contract amount, but that's still within contingency of the overall contract amount, is
Yes.
that right? Okay,
Yeah.
perfect, thank you.
Great question. Okay, anything else? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Who are you looking for? Monique?
Yeah, yes, I vote yes, but for whatever reason, my vote is something. I'm having technical problems.
Okay. The motion passes. Thank you. Okay, moving on to item 2D, recommend adoption of resolution approving assignment and assumption of the purchase and sale agreement with the Alliance for Economic Development of the Oklahoma City. You see the address, it's 6440 South Santa Fe Avenue for the MAPS 4 Youth Centers Phase 2 for $4 million, and authorizing reimbursement of an $80,000 deposit to the Alliance for Economic Development of Oklahoma City.
We have an ongoing contract with the Alliance for Economic Development to do just this, purchase land for us and with us, and that's what they have done. Remember, we identified that second youth center location, and now we're proceeding in purchasing that property.
Any questions? Okay, not, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2E, recommend approval of change order number 1, Maps for Innovation District Connectivity Phase 1 in the vicinity of Northeast 8th and North Lincoln, near Lottie between Northeast 8th and Northeast 15th for an increase of $23,049.20.
Subcommittee saw a presentation on the progress of this project. I think everybody's very pleased with what's going on. There's a couple of items on here that were required for us to complete the project. There's unclassified excavation is digging dirt. And then traffic signal cable, when they exposed that, it needed to be replaced, and we always repair the things that need to be repaired as we go along. And then there's a contract time item on here, but is a no cost because of all the rain. And you're going to see a couple of these today. Because of the bad weather that we've had recently, there's 22 days to extend the contract.
Okay, take a motion in a second. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'll take a motion in a second to approve. Okay. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2F, recommend approval of change order number 2, maps for bike lanes, Phase 1B, North Classen Boulevard between Northwest Grand Boulevard and North Britton Road, and Northeast 16th between North Walnut Avenue and Bryant Avenue. No increase.
Right, so this is a change order just to extend the contract days, 78 days. There was 2 issues on this, not only the weather, but also some paving issues arose that we had to coordinate with Public Works and work through that. So it pretty much shut them down for this time period, and they're deserving of these days back. And again, it's at no cost.
Okay. Take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Great. Moving on to item 2G, quarterly update on the Maps for Homelessness projects. There we go. I can spit it out. I can.
Okay, so as we do every quarter, we do an update on this. Greg Shin is here from the Oklahoma City Housing Authority to take you through what's been going on.
Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, and good morning. Go Thunder.
Yes.
All right. Sorry I don't have a Thunder tie on, but I'm looking for one.
All righty.
Okay, great. Thank you. Next slide, please. Okay, so I want to remind us again what our overall goals here of the Maps for Homelessness program. These goals are to be achieved over 5 allocations of $10.7 million each. So today I have updates on the outcomes of allocation 1 and the beginnings of the second allocation, which were approved a couple of months ago, and we already received that money. Next slide, please. So in the first allocation, we committed $1 million to the Oak Grove project. That's one of the current existing public housing projects, so that would come under the goal that you just saw of 1,500 renovated public housing units. Right now, we have $1 million of MAPS funding committed to that. On the Creston Park, that is also part of the 1,500 public housing renovated units. We committed $2.5 million to that project. The pre-development fund is a revolving fund that we replenish as we get fees in, and we use that fund as a revolving fund. Supportive housing goal of 500 units. Vita Nova is the motel conversion at East Reno and MLK. That one we committed $3 million to, and that's 76 units. Supportive housing number 2 is Dorset Place. That's in northwest Oklahoma City, and that's 70 units total in the end, but right now we have 37 units. And we've committed $1.5 million to that project so far. That should not be pending because we closed on that project already, and we own the property now. More on that as we go ahead. Next slide, please. So this is Dorset Place. You didn't see pictures of it yet, but if you're not familiar with it, it was a former assisted living facility. It wasn't really keeping up to market standards, and it had really gone into foreclosure, and a developer who acquires assisted living facilities that are in that state, he bought it, and then he made several upgrades and renovations to the property, and then we were able to acquire it really at below market value. And then this will be a project where we're going to move veterans into a newly rehabilitated facility that will become permanent supportive housing. 37 units in the first phase, 33 units in the later phase that we don't have programmed yet, but I'll keep you updated on that. And we expect occupancy on this project to begin August 1st. We're just waiting for the operating agreement to come back from the VA, which has gone through their bureaucratic process of being approved from DC and the various levels that they need to come back to the Oklahoma City VA Medical Center so that their director can sign off on that memorandum of agreement to provide all the services. The VA will be there 5 days a week. The medical director for the HUD-VASH program will be there monthly with their mobile medical clinic where they can treat people right on site, do x-rays, do all kinds of things that are needed to be done. And if they can't treat them within that mobile clinic, they'll refer to the medical center for further evaluation. But the VA will be a constant presence on site there, while the Community Enhancement Corporation, the nonprofit development arm of the Housing Authority, will be providing the property management, the security for the operations of the building. This is what it looked like before we actually did the upgrades. It now has all new flooring in the entire building. We have done a lot of upgrades there, but it wasn't an extensive construction project, so we were able to complete this with just a few months to get it ready for move-in. So we're finalizing that, and as I said, we're hoping August 1st we can start move-in. Next project, please. So now on the second allocation, and some of this really is in the still pending, and some of it's further along. So, but this is what we have in the pipeline right now. So, Will Rogers Courts is the public housing project that we currently own and operate, which is between the Stockyards and South Rotary Park. We're calling that neighborhood now Westwood Exchange, but the idea is to use the Choice Neighborhoods Planning Grant that we have. We've been working on that for 2 years, and we committed $2.5 million to the redevelopment of that site when we apply for and achieve an implementation grant. So we have the planning grant right now, but the implementation grant is to carry out the plan that you develop during the planning grant. HUD is in the process of approving our planning grant and the outcomes of that. And so when we do the development, we will commit $2.5 million of maps, and this will go on the side of public housing redevelopment. On the 1,500 units that we had there, it's 348 units, but we plan to come back with 712 units of mixed income housing. So all 348 public housing units will be replaced with brand new construction, plus an additional allowance for deeper investment in the neighborhood to increase affordability and to add back more than double the number of units that are there right now. So there'll be a lot more density in the area, and it will be mixed income. It will not be just purely very low income housing like the public housing is now, so it'll be a mixed income neighborhood. We hope that it'll be one of the new move-to destinations for families in the city. I want to remind you that that's the same area of town that the Strong Neighborhoods Initiative received funding for just recently. So that's infill neighborhood redevelopment. So you would see single-family home redevelopment with the infill initiative, as well as multifamily redevelopment with the choice neighborhoods. So we're planning on applying for that application as soon as the next notice of funding availability is published by HUD. Assuming there is another one published by HUD, we will apply for that, and we can apply for historically up to $50 million is what they have provided in the last several rounds of funding for that. Moving forward on the supportive housing projects, here I'm giving you the first look at one of the projects that we're doing with We Host Alliance. This is a third-party developer under the MAPS operating agreement. We are allowed to allocate MAPS funds to other development partners as long as they meet the goals of what the MAPS for Homelessness operating agreement spells out. So when we work with a third-party developer, they must adhere to all of the compliance components that we have so that I can report back to this committee and to City Council and everybody that the money has been spent, the units are created for the intended purpose in this situation. It's permanent supportive housing for chronically homeless individuals with disabilities. And this project will be located right across from the Homeless Alliance campus, where the developer has secured land. And this will be 38 units of permanent supportive housing that will be operated long-term for the target population. Next slide, please. So right now, looking at all of the investments that we're planning to make across both allocations right now, you can see where they are located on this city map so that we can show how all these investments are being made in neighborhoods across the city. They're not being located in one neighborhood or one part of the city. And as we move forward, you'll see more areas on this map as we intentionally make investments in different neighborhoods across the city. And so you can look at the key there and see where they all are. Go ahead, next slide, please. And so this is showing you the number of units that were, and the project type, whether it's new construction, mixed income, whether it's affordable with commercial, or whether it's a supportive housing conversion, and we'll even have new construction supportive housing later on. But right now you can see the total number of units. So when the first allocation, we're achieving 589 units, and you can see the status there. Creston Park is in progress. We should begin demo of the existing homes that are outdated and dilapidated that are on Northeast 28th and 29th Streets along MLK. The demo will begin this summer in July or August. You'll start to see us moving forward with demolition of those outdated homes on those two streets there. Oak Grove is a little bit longer of a plan, and we're still in the financing plan for that. We intend to apply for low-income housing tax credits this month to the Oklahoma Housing Finance Agency. It is 288 units currently, but we're adding 18 units of new construction in addition to replacing the 288 public housing units. So we'll have a little bit more density on that site than is currently there right now. Vita Nova, again, is 76 units. That's in the design phase right now. We should have that under construction before the end of 2025. We're selecting a general contractor. That's what GC means there. And Dorset Place, as I said, we already have that, and we're looking to start lease up on August 1st. In fact, we could start pre-leasing as soon as we get that, the agreement back from the VA. So that's 589 total units from the first allocation. Next slide, please. And this is our timeline that I just kind of went over with you. There's the timeline for Creston Park. We'll start demo this summer. Oak Grove is a little further out into 2026 once we get that tax credit application approved. Vita Nova Supportive Housing will begin construction before the end of this year. Dorset Place we already have. I just want to point out that that is the fastest project that we have on the schedule here. We proposed it. We used only MAPS funding plus some permanent debt financing that we were able to do to close on that property, so we turned that project around very quickly. We have more projects that we will be identifying as we move forward on the second allocation, and then you see the We Are Society PSH program starting this year, and then Dorset Place Phase 2, which is the 33 additional units. That's a memory care facility right now, but we will be converting that, winding that project, winding that program down and converting that to supportive housing, but I don't have the programming, and I'll keep you updated as that project moves forward. Okay, next slide, please. So I want to talk about the leveraging. So right now, with all of the projects from the first $10.7 million, really about $8 million of the $10.7 million is actually being used for development. The other funds are in the pre-development fund and admin, but $8 million of actual development funding is returning right now, $125 million in leveraged sources. I'm going to give you further detail on that as we go forward. I'm going to break that down a little bit more concisely for you so you can actually see what kind of return or the ratio of return that we're getting on that. So look for that in future presentations. Next slide, please. And so this also calculates the units that are in the pipeline for the second allocation. We have Will Rogers Courts. I told you that we have 712 units projected on that. That's still in the planning phase. That will be, in HUD terms, what is called a RAD conversion. That's a financing tool that they have for public housing to convert their units from public housing into affordable housing on the private market. And so we're pursuing that. We Host Alliance is by the Homeless Alliance. That's 38 units. We have a pending application with HUD that we're actually reapplying for. HUD just put the notice out to reapply. It's due later this month. That's a partnership with Mental Health Association Oklahoma and the Homeless Alliance, and that will be 40 units of new construction if we get that application approved by HUD. And then we have 2 projects in the pipeline right now that I will name at a later date, but these are focusing the first units that we're putting in there towards the goal of 150 workforce units. So we have family workforce units, 24 in one location and 132 in another location, which I will name in the next quarterly report. That's very preliminary, but I have high confidence in these projects going forward. So right now, with the second allocation, we're looking at 946 units in the pipeline. Next slide, please. So that's what I have right now, and I think you can see what we have in the pipeline plus what's actually already taken place, what we know is going to happen right now. We are overachieving on our goals, both on the leveraging as well as on the number of units that we'll create. So I hope that I can keep those numbers moving forward, and we outperform the operating agreement and what we said that we will get to as we move forward. So right now, I'm really happy with the outcome of the projects we have scheduled, but I'm happy to take any questions.
Any questions of Greg? Yes, Bob.
I just have a concern. You know, the MAPS funding in many cases is a relatively small part of the total commitment.
Correct.
For a project, and I'm just concerned about contingency plans if some of that other funding doesn't come through, especially in the current political environment. If those funds disappear, grants aren't awarded, funds are not available, what happens to the MAPS funds that are already committed to that project if we can't see it through?
No, so with what I've showed you that's in the pipeline from the first allocation, those funds are still available if they're federal funds or they've already been allocated to the city or we've already got tax credits for them. So those projects we already have the financing plan on, except for Oak Grove, we're still working on that financing plan. So if for instance, some of the subsidies are cut, a good example is the Home Investment Partnership Program. That is one of the funding streams that comes for development within cities in project jurisdictions. Oklahoma City is a project jurisdiction, and so they allocate those funds based on the federal budgets that's approved by Congress, and then signed by the president. So we're monitoring those very closely. Right now, the home program, as we call it, is scheduled to be zeroed out in the proposed budget by the president. But that would be future allocations would be zeroed out. But right now, with the funds, home funds that the city already has, that's where we've got awards for Creston Park. That's where we've got an award for Vita Nova. Those funds are already allocated to the city. They will not be clawed back. What we would be looking at in the current budget proposals is what would be allocated going forward. So that might affect future rounds of funding if we went after home funds as one of the subsidies in a future project like Will Rogers, for instance. So that's a good question. We're monitoring it very closely. The fact is that the president's initial budget presentation is very harsh towards HUD. But what happens is the House then provides their budget proposal, and then the Senate provides their budget proposal. So normally we see the Senate, which is the last one, come back with a more moderate budget proposal. So that's kind of the checks and balances as they have traditionally worked for the last 150 years of our country. So presuming that that standard process takes place, again, what the president has proposed right now is not the final budget. But we're, not only is the Housing Authority here monitoring that closely, there are national organizations that are advocacy organizations that are monitoring the situation very closely. And so I think I said this at my last presentation, but now is the time to contact your elected officials from the state of Oklahoma to advocate for the budget that you think would be the best for our state.
Well, I understand it's a very fluid situation right now with
Yeah.
a lot of components to it. I still have some concern that there have been congressional appropriations that have been unspent by the current administration, and I'm concerned that that may, even funds that you are treating as allocated, might disappear on us.
Right, so for any government locality that has unspent funds that they need help with, we are open to them telling us about that so we can help them spend that money right now. And I've done that before successfully with multiple projects with federal funds that flow through the city. And in Tulsa, I did that on a number of occasions because you don't want to send any money back to the federal government that is unspent. That is a sin. Okay.
Yes.
I just wanted to see if you could give me a clear picture about the update at Creston Park, like when demolition, you said June 2025, but we have seen dates before where the demolition was going to happen. Are we for sure that this is starting now?
Yes, yes, ma'am. Thank you for asking that. We are sure that demo is going to start this summer. Yes, we're contracting for that right now. And so we're trying to work on the budget that we have right now. Prices are escalating quickly. It's a changing environment, and so some of the pricing that we sent out initially and what we're getting back, we may have a small gap, but we're working to close that right now, but that's not going to change or impact what we have scheduled for the demolition right now. So that is going to start and take place. Right now, we're projecting that we'll start going vertical before the end of the year, probably in November. And it's 170 units out of a 3-phase project. So we've got to get the financing completed for the 170 units, and then we can move on to phase 2 and phase 3. And we're now also working closely with Restore OKC on some of the development plans for phase 2 and phase 3. So we're kind of pushing outward for more community input on what it looks like as we go forward for the rest of the project. But right now we'll have a mix of senior affordable housing and family affordable housing and a number of subsidized units in there, and a number of unsubsidized units will also be at the site. So it'll be mixed income. And I'll be happy to show anybody the development plans once we have the final architectural design. We're very, very close to that right now. And once we have it complete, I'll be happy to roll that out. I'll include those designs in my future presentations, as well as I'd be happy to share them with anybody individually.
Okay. Any other questions for Greg? Okay, thank you for being here. Appreciate your update.
Thank you.
Okay, and we don't have to vote to receive that, right? No. Okay. Moving on to item 2H, recommend approval of request for proposals to be advertised, maps for supportive housing operating partner.
AJ Kirkpatrick is here from ADG to take you through this RFP.
Yes, thank you, David. So some of you may be thinking, weren't you here just a few months ago about this issue? After we took it through legal weighed in and wanted these to be two separate actions at council. The rejection that we were here back in March, and then this as the new issuance. And then in the meantime, the city has started using a different format for these sort of RFPs. And so I'm going to walk you through that newer format as part of this. So you may remember that this was the original schedule that we had for transitional housing. I'm going to show you just a little bit about how we have altered this schedule. But you may remember that we initially were working with someone through most of '24 on what I would call more of a transitional model of housing. I think, saw a lot of the benefits of that sort of housing within the overall ladder of options. But I think what we discovered that was just going to be too difficult to find a way to actually fund a transitional model. There just is not money to help with the ongoing operational. Within the group that proposed this to City Council several years ago, there was really a split about what type of housing we should be doing here. We picked up on transitional because the resolution says for those transitioning out of the Restoration Center and Crisis Center. But there were an equal number of people in that group that also believe that this should have just been permanent supportive housing. And the main difference I would describe to you is that permanent supportive indicates that there is a lease present, and then that kind of brings in all sorts of additional rights that someone has. And so once you bring a lease in, you could end up with folks that are living in that unit for quite some time. Because they may end up feeling like that's the best place for them. So what we're trying to do continue through this, so the group decided back in February, and this will probably be a good way to show this. So we initially did this, we put this out in the first time in late '23. Original proposals were received in February of '24, and we interviewed the chosen proposal team in May of '24. And that's what started those ongoing negotiations and conversations with the chosen operator. And then in February of '25, the selection committee, including some of the people that were on the subcommittee, felt like we just weren't going to be able to make it work in that transitional model, and they requested new proposals. And then in March, we were here, and the subcommittee and CAB officially rejected those original proposals. So we are going to put this back out, and we're going to put it out with a slightly different tweak that's going to put more of an emphasis on permanent supportive. We have had some conversations with interested parties, and we think there are definitely people on the other side of this that are ready for this opportunity with this new angle. If you were to look out at the schedule I'm going to show you at the end of the presentation, though, we would basically be doing those interviews likely in August of '25, if we can stick to that schedule. So that kind of shows you a little bit about how we've altered the original schedule that was in the implementation plan. That yellow area is where we would be doing design. And so we're going to be coming in towards the end of that part of the process with the new operator team. So to walk you through our general process again, we would do the operator selection agreement, that green bar, and then we would go through pre-design. That's where we do some of the RFQs and advertise them for design services. The good news here is we already do have the designer selected for this project. You may remember that AHMM was selected for both this and the Restoration Center. So we've been waiting just to get the operator at the table because we want them, especially on this project, to have as much input as possible on the design of that. So then I skipped over that. Then the gold is that design that we looked at before, and the blue is the construction. To jump into that gray bar a little bit more, we would break that down further into advertisement, selection, agreement development. And this walks you just through some of the ways that you're going to be involved in that process. So you're going to approve of RFP prior to release. That's what we're doing today. There'd be the selection committee involvement, which would include some representation from the subcommittee. And then we would move into approval, you would move into approving of the binding term sheet and then approval of the final agreement as we got further down into construction and closer to opening of the project. So the RFP contents, again, this has changed a little bit from anytime you may have seen us give this presentation in the past. So this is the new categories that the city is wanting to use in these opportunities. So there's going to be a notice to proposers that's going to be very brief, that lays out when the opportunity is going to become available. Within the RFP document, we have the special provisions, which include the minimum qualifications, the selection process we'll use, and the evaluation criteria we'll use. Then it moves into a section now called the opportunity that includes the project summary, background, statement of need and goals, and then finally the scope of services, where we describe the services we're seeking, our expectations for the contract, and the content that we expect in the proposals. I'm going to walk you through each one of those really quickly here. So in the special provisions, there is now a minimum qualification section, and you may remember from the resolution that there is language that says that they must identify a non-municipal source of operational funding and include a government agency as part of the proposal. Those that fail to do either of those would be automatically disqualified. And then in the selection process, it identifies the makeup of the selection committee. The evaluation criteria lists the factors the city may use for selection per city ordinance, and then we go further to list those items that we will be using to officially score those proposals, and those are the bulleted items below. In terms of the opportunity, this is housing for residents experiencing mental illness or homelessness, those that are transitioning out of a crisis center, the restoration center, or similar facilities. This is the key change that I was highlighting. The city is asking proposers to propose a model that would be primarily longer term in nature, that permanent supportive model, but hoping that they will still be able to justify in their financial model at least 30% of the units remain short term, and that is really to help on that last bullet above for those that are transitioning out. The last thing we want to do is open the facility, have it fill up immediately with longer term leases, and then have a no vacancy sign on this. So the last piece is that they need to be able to provide case management and other 24-hour wraparound services. It's a $7.8 million project. Space for the project has been included at Northwest 6th Street and Linwood, adjacent to the planned MAPS 4 Restoration Center. You may remember from a previous presentation that AHMM has done some preliminary site tests that it can fit both projects, and that's about as far as we've gotten on design for this particular housing project. We do have the qualified architectural firm, and we do point out that addition of operating partner prior design is to allow ample time for their input and coordination. The statement of need is that we're looking for an operating partner responsible for all expenses associated with operation and maintenance and entitled to all revenue from their operations. And they should have relevant experience with similar facilities, be able to provide those wraparound services or get them through other subcontracts with other agencies, and that they have fiscal and service capacity to operate and manage the centers. They need to demonstrate the operation and service delivery experience with similar facilities and their ability to work cooperatively with the city and the community. If they do not have that direct experience, they need to be able to describe what capabilities they have that does still make them qualify for consideration. And we are welcoming proposals from single entities or multiple providers under a common legal entity. The city will then enter into a multi-year contract with the most qualified partner. Per the resolution intent, I already identified those. It's the identification of operational funding from a non-municipal source and operating agreement with a government agency that includes measurable benchmarks. And that all needs to be accomplished per the resolution by December 31st of 2026, so we still have time to accomplish that. And the resolution goes on to say that use of the center should prioritize Oklahoma City residents where possible. So as I mentioned, the benchmarks, they are expected to recommend a full set of benchmarks that we would then include in any subsequent agreement that would help judge their performance in the future. This is those buckets that I showed you that we'll use for evaluation. They match up perfectly to the description of services, so we're going to be asking them to answer several bulleted items under each one of these items, but they are generally qualifications of background, financial capacity, measurable benchmarks and citizen oversight, program services and schedule, staffing and management, business plan, public communication, marketing, enrollment, maintenance, and lastly, quality assurance, risk management, and insurance. They will need to be, for a proposal to be considered complete, it will need to have a cover letter, table of contents, the operations proposal, and any additional information. And assuming that everything moves as we expect, this would go to City Council on June 17th, which would allow city staff to then begin advertising it on June 18th. The pre-proposal conference would be on June 27th. That would give them an opportunity to come in and ask any questions they have prior to finishing their proposals. And then they would turn in their proposals on July 30th. So that gives them about a month and a half to actually work on their proposals. And then that would give us August to consider any proposal we receive, do interviews as required, or if necessary, and then to move on to the selection of a new operating partner in this new model. So that is it. Any questions?
AJ, thank you. Questions? Bob?
Yes, sir.
Do you have any sense of how many qualified operators may respond to the RFP that?
I've heard from at least 3 different entities. Now, they may end up on the same team, or 2 of the 3 may end up on the same team, but you know, they do have to check that box of having the government entity, so that's part of what they're all, I think, trying to weigh.
But you're confident there are some out there that can
We feel pretty confident, yeah.
successfully respond?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, great. Other questions? Ryan?
You mentioned 30%, you know, having that be transitory, and I guess the other 70% then could be more permanent at that time. How does that play into like the previous presentation where a lot of that housing is more for permanent? Like, wouldn't we want to keep more of this for the transitory, or have it at least be more 50-50? Or I'm just trying to figure out how it plays into the other project.
That kind of speaks to our initial thought process. In the debates through the end of last year, I think we've realized that permanent supportive has just more support for ongoing operational funding. And I think there's a school of thought within the original proponents for these projects that that this will work better if it's part of a larger network of housing options, and that would give the operator of that housing the opportunity to be moving people out of this particular project to some other permanent supportive, maybe in other parts of the community. And it can't really operate as a standalone, which is what we were kind of ending up with.
You just couldn't really get an operator that would be able to do it when it's all transitory? Is that really the issue?
We had, I think, a qualified team. It's just we could never get the financials to work that made everyone confident that they wouldn't be coming back in 5 years and saying, we can't cover all the costs. City, can you help us pick up some of the costs? And so that combined with the fact that many of the proponents felt like this should have been 100% permanent supported from the beginning made us think that maybe it was time to go back out and see what would happen if we changed the makeup.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, other questions? Okay? Yeah, Shay. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can I just add a thought and maybe ask for some additional clarity from you on that, AJ? One of the discussions we held, kind of had over and over in the subcommittee, was there's also the intersection with mental health and addiction, specifically on homelessness, and that intersection is, I suppose, the kind of turnaround time to get somebody back on their feet is just longer. And if you could add any more clarity to that, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, in the original proposal, there was a lot of back and forth. Before we even got to the financial model, there was a lot of back and forth about like what is the right amount of time that someone needs to be in this, and what is the right way to give them treatment. You have to realize a lot of the people that are coming out of these facilities may be coming right off the street. They may be firmly in the grips of their addiction or their mental health problems. And so the hope here is that if we can leave some of those transitional units in the project, that they will still be getting some of that support that they need as they're trying to figure out what's the next step in their life. The permanent supportive then allows them to kind of get into more of a, once you're at flying altitude, that you're at more of a managed state, if that makes sense. Does that answer your question, Chelsea? Okay.
Thank you for adding that clarification, Shelby. Bob.
Hey, let me just follow up on Chelsea's question. You referred to long-term and short-term. Is there a definition for those in terms of timeline, or is that a fluid?
I'm trying to remember what the original proposal, I think they were saying that they felt like the sweet spot for transitional was 6 to 8 months. That that also concerned us because that made us feel like there wasn't going to be enough turnover to have those vacancies for people. And so the response we were getting back was, maybe we could do it a little faster. I don't know that there, in that sector of the community, that there's a hard and fast answer to that. But there is definitely a sense that it's not going to happen in a couple weeks. I think the lowest we got maybe was 2 to 3 months is maybe, but again, you have to kind of think about, how much time would it take someone to kick alcohol or drugs or to get their mental health back in check once they're on medication. So I think we're just anxious to see what these new proposers will come back with specific to that transitional piece and the wraparound services that would be necessary to get people back up on their feet and then moving on to permanent supportive housing units.
Okay. Any other questions for AJ? Great discussion. Great discussion. Thank you so much.
Thank you for your questions.
So with that, I'd take a motion in a second to approve. You cast your votes. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2I, recommend approval of change order number 4, maps for sidewalks and related amenities, phase 1A. No increase.
Right, so this is another no increase change order just based on time because of weather.
Okay, any questions? Okay, we'll take a motion in a second. The motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2J, recommend approval of resolution extending time to award the construction contract on maps for sidewalk and related amenities, phase 2A. I'm not going to list all of the areas. To construction contract base bid alternate 1. Ratifying and approving addenda number 1 and 2. Awarding the construction contract base bid plus alternate 1 to Nash Construction Company for $2,023,448.10 and approving contract and bonds. Mr. Top.
Yep, so this is a new sidewalk project that we bid out in the usual manner, ready to get started on it. And we've worked with Nash before. They're working on one of our projects now, so we're ready.
Great. Any questions? Okay, if not, I'd take a motion in a second. I'm sure glad I just moved from 63rd to Villa. No construction for me. Okay. Okay, the motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 2K, presentation on design update and maps for park enhancement, public spaces, transformation, river, phase 2 dam.
Right, so Chris Russell from Team Design is here. Remember that this phase 2, it says dam project, but it's the bridge, it's all those things down at the river. So Chris, talk a little bit about the dam, but the intent was to show you what was going on with the bridge.
Yeah, so just brief update on phase 2 of this, the low water dam. We've been working on final plans, specs, and estimates. At this time, we've got it broken out into a couple different pieces, the base bid for the dam, broken out bid alternates for access to the dam location for public works. At this time, the base bid, we believe, will be within MAP's budget, but that's being evaluated based on the current ongoing construction and overall budget, how that affects it. In the meantime, we are working on permitting, which is going through the review and approval process at various levels, local, city, and some federal. With that, I'll roll into this. Okay, so as a recap for those that may or may not have seen this, the pedestrian bridge is just upstream of the Eastern Avenue Dam. Greenway Trail is on the north side. It's reconstructing a portion of that to fix, or well, not fix, but tie the grades together. On the south side, it's tying to the Embark Boat Landing and the Okana site. Just a plan sheet from the set of plans they're working with. Okay, so at the end of February, the contractor hit a major milestone. They had finished hanging the steel beams. So then they could make a lot of progress quickly, starting on the North Shore. So after that, they were finishing up the abutments on either shore. This is before it gets backfilled. This is on the north side, looking back to the south, so that's the next step for the south side. It'll get backfilled with all that aggregate and some conduit. A couple aerials here, just showing the overall site progress. Here you can see they're setting up the formwork for the bridge deck, so we'll get a closer photo in just a moment. That's the backfill on the south side, so they've finished that, laid some conduit that'll run along the bridge to the North Shore as well. Some of that's controlling the lighting, some of that's IT. There's the closer look at that bridge deck. They've laid all the reinforcing. Next step is going to be them pouring all of the concrete. So they'd started that kind of the beginning of April. Then the following week, they'd actually already finished. Also had formed up the west side curb. That's that kind of tall curb. On top of that's where they will be installing the cable rail. So they're finishing up on the east side, on the other side of the bridge there, the formwork for that side's parapet. This is looking back, this is the North Shore. They're starting to pour the final deck elevation for that abutment. South side, kind of same progress, back and forth. It's maybe a little further to the west on the site. Kind of you can see some of the Embark boat landing progress as well. By mid-May, they've actually finished all of the finished deck concrete, finishing up the formwork for the curb on the parapet sections. There you can see along the west side of the bridge, you can actually see the pedestals where the light poles will be mounted. On the North Shore, they've started to finish the grading for the Greenway Trail reconstruction. That'll be one of the last pieces that they construct as they clean up the site. A couple more aerials, so you can see kind of the overall site again. And this is actually from last Thursday. They're nearly done. They are completely done with the bridge deck. It's all that's left is the handrails and the lighting. And then hard to see at this scale, but on the this is on the South Shore, or sorry, North Shore, look at south. They're actually painting or staining the concrete, and so they had just finished that up. And then actually the next day, on Friday, they hung the first of the pier medallions. So contractors made a lot of good progress, and they're wrapping up. No change orders or amendments, this is just everything to date. So just the last kind of pieces of the schedule. Mid-June, we expect they'll be finishing up the last of those stainings, installing some of the lighting. By the end of the month, they'll have installed all of the handrail, and so that'll be substantial completion, and then they'll be finishing up with any punch list items in July. And that's all I've got for you, so happy to answer any questions.
That sounds wonderful. Any questions? Awesome. Need to go see it. Okay, thank you so much. All right, we are going to strike item 2L and move on to item 2M. Recommend approval of Amendment 4 to the Professional Services Agreement with Gooden Group, Inc., MAPS 4 Program Public Relations Media Consultants for an increase of $298,800. This would be July 1st, 2025 through June 30, 2026.
Right, so this is our annual contract with Gooden Group, and remember, Gooden takes care of our social media. We have a significant presence on Twitter and Facebook and various things. They watch that and help us answer any comments or questions that come up there. But more importantly, they take care of all the ribbon cuttings and the groundbreakings and the upcoming ribbon cutting. Remember that we've had groundbreakings for Palomar Diversion Hub in the last year or so. So they do a wonderful job at that, and glad to have them for another year.
Yes, absolutely.
Animal.
And animal welfare, yes, sir.
Yes, they do a great job. We appreciate them very much. Any questions? Okay, if not, I take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Thank you. And their last action item, item 2N, recommend approval of amendment number 5 to the contract for professional consulting services with ADG PC for the MAPS 4 program for an increase of $2,193,059.
Similarly, this is our annual contract with ADG, and they provide us many services. You saw AJ Kirkpatrick is part of those services, helping us with the RFP that we just did. They help us with many of those. They also have people in the field that are helping observe construction. They review our plans, help us with planning. They do a lot of things behind the scenes that you don't necessarily see, but they've been with us a long time, and we're glad to have them.
Okay. Any questions? We very much appreciate ADG. The team is phenomenal. I think you give your best to MAPS, and we appreciate that. So take a motion in a second. Motion passes. Thank you. Moving on to item 3, discussion items.
We don't have anything.
Okay. 4, MAPS 4 Citizen Advisory Board Subcommittee reports. Anybody got a report? Looks like we're getting busy. Jessica?
We are, neighborhoods met on Tuesday, and we did see the youth center's proposal, and it's exciting. It was for Woodson Park. But I think the reason we're not here seeing it today is because the architect couldn't be here. So I just wanted everybody to know that.
Okay, good. Thank you. Anything else? Any other reports? Okay. Item 5, update status of MAPS 4 program. Mr. Todd.
As you mentioned, there's a lot going on, a lot of sidewalks under construction, Animal Welfare Center under construction. This is that point when I said it was going to get really, really busy, and we're there. Palomar has started initial construction. We've got a lot of stuff in design right now, so as we go through the summer, you'll see a lot more things getting bid and working. Which brings me to the ribbon cutting on the 11th at 10:30. Hope that everybody can make that. The Coliseum looks fantastic. Then also, I want to remind you that the July meetings are pushed a week because of the July 4th holiday. It'll be the next following week in the usual Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday
Okay.
manner. That's it.
Okay. Thank you. Moving on to item 6, comments by board, staff, and citizens. Do we have any citizens that have signed up? Okay. Anything else from staff?
No, ma'am.
Okay. Any comments from the board? I'm just going to say thunder up big time, guys. This is going to be so much fun. We're going to have a blast. Okay. If there's nothing else, item 7 is adjourned.